Hi, my name is Miss Christy. I am a teaching artist in the PACE program with the Acadiana Center for the Arts. We teach art lessons in the Lafayette Parish public school system in Lafayette, Louisiana. Today we're going to be learning about Claude Monet. He was an artist over 100 years ago, and he and a group of friends started a new art movement called Impressionism. It started a whole new movement of art where they were trying to paint with bright colors, and things didn't have to be perfect. The paintings did not have to be smooth. They wanted to show the brush strokes. They wanted to show the paint and how they could express what they saw in nature through that paint on a canvas. So today all we're going to need is a pencil, any kind of paper that you can find, and crayons. I have here a piece of copy paper. You can use construction paper. You can use anything. You could use the inside of a cereal box, a brown paper bag, anything that you can find. You want to cut it down to about this size of a regular sheet of paper. Monet and his friends were interested in looking at nature. They were actually in nature. They were in gardens. They went to these places and painted what they saw. Many of them did paintings of sunflowers. You might recognize Van Gogh's painting of sunflowers, and you can see he used the same rough brush strokes and lots of paint on the canvas to show the light and the colors of the sunflowers in a vase. Well, Monet did very much the same thing in this painting. You see that there's a table with a tablecloth. You can see that there's a vase full of flowers. Now, I'm going to start by drawing in the table. You can see here that it's a very simple shape that goes behind the vase. We're going to draw in this shape first, and then we're going to draw the vase. After we draw the vase, we're going to just draw in the basic shapes of the flower. Everything is made of shapes in nature. And we're going to say that this table is kind of a rectangle. So we're going to start with that on our paper. I want you to use your finger and point to the right bottom corner of your paper. After you do that, trace your finger up just a little bit, use your pencil, and draw a horizontal line. That's a line that goes side to side across the paper. Next, you're going to draw a diagonal line down to the other side of the paper. So you can see this already looks like a table with just two lines. Next, we're going to draw in our vase. The vase is going to start with two parallel lines. That's lines that are side by side and never cross. So it's just like the number 11. You're going to draw two vertical lines. Have you ever heard of the word vertical? These two lines are going up and down. That's what vertical means. Now you're going to draw a curved line connecting those two lines at the bottom. It's like a smiley face curve. Just a little bit of a curved line. That's the bottom of our vase. The flowers hide the top of the vase, but we're going to draw it in anyway. This part of the bottle is called the neck. And what we're going to do is we're going to draw a curved line going toward the center, and then we're going to do the same thing on the other side. We're going to draw two curved lines. There's our vase. You don't have to worry about the pencil marks because we're going to be coloring in it coloring it in. But if you want to erase this line inside the bottle, you can. It makes it even look more like it's sitting on this table. The next thing we're going to draw in are some of the leaves of these sunflowers. Sunflowers have big, kind of heart-shaped leaves. So we're going to just draw in some leaves coming out of the bottle. You can see here that they're kind of like ovals with a little point on the end. Monet painted these in kind of with very rough brush strokes. And when we color them in, we're going to be doing that. But for right now, let's just draw in some leaves. If you ever need to pause the video while you're drawing to catch up, please do so. But I'm going to keep on going, and I'm just drawing in a few leaves before we do our flowers. Now let's start with flowers in the middle. We're going to draw two right here. So first I'm going to draw an oval or a circle, and then I'm going to put in some petals. But you can see I'm trying to draw very, very lightly because we're going to be using yellow for these flowers. And we don't want the pencil marks to show. So here's the second one. I'm going to put a little circle on the inside as well. And then we're just going to draw in those petals. And you can put as many petals as you want. And we're going to try to overlap. And while we do this, I'm going to talk to you about sunflowers and how special they are. Sunflowers are actually from the Americas. They were originally here. We call them native plants when they come from the area that we're from. And they actually came from North America. So I'm continuing to draw an oval or a circle and draw in the petals. They can be different sizes. It'll look more convincing, or it'll trick your eye into thinking that it's real if they are different sizes. Some of the flowers that he drew are actually going off to the side. There's a little bit of a stem. If you'll look at the painting over here, you can see that this flower, you can actually see the back side of the flower with a stem. And there's a few others. There's one here that kind of does the same thing. And there's one that's even coming off of the page here. So we're going to try to draw those in. So I drew a stem. That's just a curved line. And then I'm going to put an oval on the end of it. But instead of going all the way around like a sun, I'm going to just draw petals on one side. And they don't have to be perfect. They just have to be a guide for when you use your crayons. I'm going to put another one of those right here. I'm going to draw an oval, and then all of my petals are going to come off of the end. I'm going to do one of those over here as well. I'm going to do a line, two lines side by side. Do you remember what that's called? That's called parallel lines. So I'm going to do another circle, and then I'm going to do more petals coming off the side. And this one I'm going to do some short petals here. Again, I'm going to do that way up here. I'm going to do another one like that, where I do a smaller circle, and then I have petals coming off longer on one side than the other. Alright, and then one more here. We're almost ready to start coloring. So something else that's fascinating about sunflowers is that some of the tallest sunflowers can get up to 20 feet. The tallest sunflower, the world's record for the tallest sunflower was 30 feet. That's taller than your house. Okay, so now we're going to start coloring. Let's begin with the tablecloth. That'll give us a good start with learning how to create texture. Have you ever heard of the word texture? Texture is when something looks like it's bumpy or it's smooth. It could be scratchy. It could be spiky like a cactus. But in the case of the tablecloth, it looks soft, and it looks like it's has a little bit of a soft texture, a little bit of a wavy texture. And I'm going to use the same colors that Monet did, but you can use any colors that you want. I'm going to go ahead and use red. I'm going to use red violet, and I'm going to use some of the other reds that we have, that you might have in your box. I always tell my students in art class to try and use as many of their crayons as possible. I want you to layer your colors. I don't want you to just color with one color. I want you to color with as many of the same color as possible. So this is the red violet, and I'm just making some little bumpy lines to get started, just to give me a little bit of that texture that I was talking about. Now this one is just a regular red, and I'm going to do a little bit more coloring with this red. This is called primary red. Do you know what the primary colors are? There's 3 primary colors. I bet you know what they are. They're red, yellow, and blue. Have you ever wondered what makes them primary, or why we call them primary colors? We call them primary colors because there's no colors that we can mix together to make red, and there's no colors that we can mix together to make yellow. You could even try, and I'll bet you won't be able to, because they're primary colors. So you can see I'm just coloring in the whole tablecloth. I'm kind of making little circles. And what that's going to do is it's going to give it a certain texture. Now this tablecloth in the painting looks like it has a little bit of turquoise blue. I'm going to use that next. But first I'm going to fill in all of the red. So I'm using red violet, violet red, and what other reds do I have? Let's see. Magenta. Magenta is kind of a pink. It has a little bit of blue in it. It gives it a little bit more of a violet color, like a red violet. Let's see, what else do I have? Brick red is a much darker red. So I'm just layering all these different reds. Okay, so I'm going to use a little bit of turquoise now. Turquoise is like a blue-green color. So if you don't have blue-green, what could you use? You could use blue, and then you can add a little bit of green over the top of it. So I'm just adding in those little bits of blue here and there. I'm also going to use this color to create the shadow. So you can see in the painting that there's a shadow here. So that is because the light, you can tell that the light is shining onto the bottle on this side. And so that has created a shadow on the painting. So in our drawing, we're going to do the same thing. And you can use the blue, or you can use black, you can use brown, you can even use a little bit of green on top of the red. Alright, so I'm going to get my red and I'm going to finish the tablecloth over here. This is red violet. Alright, so once you get your tablecloth all filled in, then we're going to work on the vase. So I have a white crayon here. And when you color on white paper with a white crayon, you really can't see it at first. You can kind of see that it's a little bit waxy. You can barely see it. But I want you to, if you have a white crayon, I want you to take your white crayon right now and just color in over the vase, especially where that light is shining on the vase. And what that's going to do is it's going to show up when we get the blue. We're going to use blue next. Especially on this right side. I want you to color over it really, really good. So you can see that I haven't given up yet. I'm trying to get as much white on the paper as possible. I know you can't see it, but you're about to. So I'm going to use a few different blues. I'm going to use just a regular blue, and I'm going to use a sky blue. So first I'm going to start on the left side of the vase, and I'm going to color in some blue. And I want you to use those circular motions when you color it in. We're trying to show how we colored it. I don't want you to chicken scratch it. I don't want you to color it all over like this. I want you to be very, very, very careful to make little tiny circles. You can go side to side, but I want you to go over and over and over it. So you can see where I put the white, it's not darker blue. So now I'm going to use the light blue, the sky blue. I'm going to color in a little bit more right over the top of that darker blue. And you can see that I'm leaving this side alone right now. Alright, so it looks like a little bit of light is reflecting back onto the bottle from the table. And there's a little bit of red on the edge right here. He painted some of that beautiful red violet into that bottle. There you go. Alright. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to start coloring our leaves. And when we do that, we're going to follow the curves that we drew with the leaves. So you can just get a regular green and any other greens you might have. Again, I want you to try layering your green. So I have forest green, asparagus green, and regular green, and then I have one that's called Granny Smith. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go the same way that I drew the leaf is the way that I'm going to color it. And you'll notice if you start doing that with your other art projects or even in a coloring book, follow the shape of the leaf. See how I traced it first? And I'm just going to keep coloring it that way. You're going to do that with all of your leaves. Trace it and then color it the same direction. And what that's going to look like is paint. We're not painting, but we are trying to make it look like a painting. And I want you to color right over the top of the vase. Because you can see in the painting that it's covering the top of the vase. So now I've moved to, actually I'm going to use the forest green first. Is that what this is? It's a little bit of a darker green. And there's some leaves up here too, behind the petals. Now I'm going to switch to that asparagus color. It's another dark green. And just keep going back and forth between your different greens, right over the same leaf. When these artists were painting, they were trying to make the paint thick, and they worked on it for a very long time. You can imagine that they must have loved painting so much that they spent their days painting. And that's what artists do. When you find the kind of art that you like to make, you want to do it all the time. So don't give up. Keep coloring with those different greens. Going over and over and over each leaf. And you can be a little bit messy with it, but I want you to try and create that texture like you're painting. All right, so now we're going to move to the flowers. So we're going to use the red that we used for the table. We're also going to use the, we're also going to use a little bit of orange. So find your reds and find an orange. So again, I want you to layer. We're going to be layering these colors. So start by tracing your circle. You can trace all of them first if you want, with one red. And I'm moving very fast, but you can pause the video and work on circling all of the inside of your sunflowers, and then press play to find out what's next. All right, so now I'm moving to a different red, the red violet. So I'm just doing the same thing I did before, going back over those areas where I colored the primary red with the red violet. Now, with the orange, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to fill it in. I'm going to continue to go around, and I'm drawing in the same shape that I drew with the pencil. I'm going around and around. I'm not coloring side to side. I'm coloring around in circles, over and over. So some of them have a little dark spot in the middle, and some of them don't. So the one at the top has a little dark spot and some little dark areas. And you can fill some of those in. So down here, it just darkens the red even more. Don't be afraid to layer those colors, The more you layer your colors, the better your drawing is going to look. And if your hand gets tired, you can just take a little break and then come back to it. Okay, so now let's do our yellow. So I'm going to use two different yellows. I'm going to use primary yellow and I'm going to use goldenrod yellow. And goldenrod is just a little bit darker of a yellow, and that's what I'm going to start with. But I'm only going to color close to the circle. So you can see I'm not coloring the whole petal yet. I'm only coloring the part of it that's closest to the circle. And I'm going to do that with most of them. It just gives it that texture that I was talking about. Like it's been painted. Now, if you don't have other yellows, then just use the one yellow that you have and color it in as much as you can. You can even go back over it with just a little bit of orange to darken it. And again, I'm coloring very fast, but you can take your time and pause the video if you need to. All right, now I'm going to use my primary yellow and I'm going to go back over everything, all of those flower petals. So another interesting fact about sunflowers is that these petals around the outside are the radial petals, but then there's also all the little places on the inside of the sunflower. Those are tiny little flowers. And every single one of those tiny, tiny little flowers makes a sunflower seed. Do you like eating sunflower seeds? I do. They're really good for you. Another thing that's so amazing about sunflowers is that they follow the sun. So when the sun comes up in the morning in the east, they face the sun in the east. And as the sun moves across the sky to the west, it follows the sun. So we all know that plants need sunlight to grow. Do you know what the other things that plants need to grow? If you said water and soil, you're right. Needs healthy soil and water to grow up to be big and tall. So we've talked about the little tiny flowers on the inside of the middle of the sunflower. And there's a special word called pollination. Have you ever heard of pollination? Pollination is when the flower begins the process to make the seeds. It's the way that the plant makes new plants and can start a new flower. All right, so we are almost done. What we're going to do next is we're going to color in some of the areas where there are leaves behind the petals. So behind these petals that you've colored yellow, you color some green. And that's where those leaves are. So he layered and layered and layered the paint so that those petals would stand out and the stem and the leaves were kind of this dark area that made the yellow even brighter. So we're just going to keep doing that. There's some green over here. All right. Now behind all of his work that he did with the flowers, there's this sky blue. So I want you to find the sky blue again, and we're just going to color in those areas. I'm going side to side. You can go up and down if you're more comfortable with that. So you're just going to color in all those little places between the petals and all around your flower. So we were talking about pollination. Do you know how pollination happens? Do you know what the job the bees have and other pollinators? They get the pollen stuck to their little feet and their legs, and they carry it from flower to flower. And that's how the plant can make new plants. I bet you've seen the bugs and the bees have come out in the springtime, and they're flying around. And you know, those bees, they won't bother you if you don't bother them. They have an important job to do. Flies can be pollinators. What else can be a pollinator? There's all kinds of animals that are pollinators, not just bugs. All right, we're almost done. So this area down there in the painting is a little bit of a lighter blue. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my white crayon and I'm going to color in a little bit of white and maybe a little bit of gray in some of the other areas. So I'm going to put some white over here. And then I'm going to come in with that sky blue and color over it. And remember, he created the painting with lots of brush strokes. So you can really create that texture. Going back over it with the white. And then I'm going to use a little bit of gray over here. All right, if there's any other little places that you need to fill in, do that with either green or blue. All right, that's so pretty. Any other details that you might want to put in? You can make the bottle a little more blue. You can color in a little blue over that white. You can give a little bit of a darker blue in some of the areas. There's a little bit of a shadow there. Right, remember to layer your colors. All right, that was fun. Thank you so much for joining me for this art project. I want you to try to make art every day. If you are interested in supporting programs like this, go to the Acadiana Center for the Arts website, the nonprofit organization that manages the PACE program, and donate. You can find all the information on the website to contact us. If you want private lessons from me, you can go to my website. That's lushceramics.com, Lush Ceramics. Thank you so much for being with me, and I hope to see you tomorrow.